Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes, best I've ever had. Probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! That's my patented yes! So don't use it without letting me know. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and thanks for joining us here in the AMP TV studios. And a big welcome into everybody listening in on all of our radio affiliates, all of our television affiliates, everybody streaming on pick your favorite streaming platform. You know who you are. And we're going to get right into it here, talk a little bit about the NFL, because we've got some games coming up and we've got some odds coming up that people are betting on. And we think about these divisional round matchups. And the Texans are traveling to Kansas City. The line opened up at 7.5 Kansas City. And these are right from Vegas, right here in Las Vegas. And the line opened up at 7.5, and it's been bet up to 8.5. Everybody's thinking, apparently, the early bettors are saying, you know what, Kansas City's going to win this game, and they're going to win by technically 2 scores. That's why it's 8.5 at this point. Only one online betting place, not to be named because they're not paying us, if you know what I mean, has them at 8.5. So, again, if you're betting at the MGM properties or Caesars properties or Bally's, they're all 8.5 right now. Usually the betting line is pretty damn close. And, of course, I wonder why, because, maybe it could be a little bit of, show me the money, maybe? Could be a little bit of that. I don't know. It could be anything like that, but it just seems ironic.
Show me the money!
It's ironic that these odds makers get the lines so close. I mean, look, just remember, in case you don't know, the charter, the purpose, whatever, for the National Football League, it says for the description of them, they're an entertainment company. What does that mean? Entertainment could be, who knows? It could involve fixing games. And we've seen so much of it over decades and decades and decades. And we've had players on this show. We had a very particular guy on here. I can't tell you when, because you'll have to listen to all 2,100 plus episodes to figure out when this individual was on. He played in the league. And when he got done playing in the league, what did he do? He went to go work for the boys, if you know what I mean. And so he gave me a lot of insight, and he had said point blank on this show, these games are fixed, and they always have been. And it's always where the money is happy, basically where the boys want the games to be ultimately. So contrary to our wanting these games to be legit, it's great, it's our national pastime, like baseball is in the summertime, football is after baseball, the games, as I see it, they have been compromised, and we're seeing it more and more on the field. We're seeing it in the replay booths. And honestly, it's a little embarrassing. And this is allegedly America's favorite sport, being football. Unfortunately, the games certainly appear to be heavily compromised. And they have some good twists in the games too, of course. Well, here's some late game drama and all this other crap. We see all this stuff. So will the Chiefs cover The 8.5, I'm going to guess absolutely not, because the Chiefs have only covered the line, I think, 4 times all season. If I'm not mistaken, it was maybe 4 times. So as a favorite, they just don't beat the spread very often. So I'm going to take the Houston Texans plus 8.5. That's a pretty good price. It's probably going to end up at 9 is my best guess, but who knows? Now, the next game ought to be a really fun one. That's over in the NFC, and that's Washington visiting the Detroit Lions. That line opened up also at 7.5, Detroit, and it's up to 9.5 at the casinos here in Las Vegas. And the online ones I don't really give a damn about, but the casinos, MGM properties, Caesars properties, Bally's, they all have them at 9.5. That's a 2-point swing, meaning somebody put a large amount of money, or some group of people put a large amount of money on the Detroit Lions to move that line 2 spots or 2 points. And typically when it comes to Super Bowl inside of a local house here in Las Vegas, one of the smaller casinos, it takes $50,000 to move the line a half a point. So in this particular case, because these are the big boys, for them to move up 2 full points in the point spread, there must have been a lot of money put on this game on the Detroit Lions. And I guess you're going to see it basically park its way there so long as it's under 10 points. But folks, I got news for you. The Washington Commanders, of course I always want to call them the Redskins, the Commanders, they have the intangibles. Let's just say all things are constant. And let's say the games aren't fixed. Well, if that's the case, the Washington Commanders, they have that factor. They have that thing that says, you know what, if something is weird going to happen on the field, it's going to happen with our club. And Jaden Daniels is playing like a seasoned veteran. His guys are playing like seasoned veterans. And the Detroit Lions, they have a problem on defense. They give up a lot of points. And I don't care what they've done the last couple of games, whatever. They have given up a lot of points, if you know what I mean. So Washington does score a fair amount of points, meaning the Detroit defense minus Aiden Hutchinson, these are not the same expectations that one would imagine, and Aiden's not going to be playing in this game, and that is a big anchor on defense for them. So they are a very mediocre defensive team. Now that said, let's face it, Washington can score with anybody. They just are that team. And so whether it's the last minute, let's find a way to win a game, whether it's a Hail Mary or this, or a doink off the upright to get into the playoffs, whatever it is, or to win a playoff game, look, these guys, they just have that. I wasn't a believer early in the season, but I sure as hell am now, and I know what I've seen, and I've seen a team that just finds ways to win. It's like watching a baseball team. They'll play small ball, they'll hit the long ball, they'll stretch a double into a triple. This is what the Washington Commanders do. They are very well coached, and they believe in the system. So this is a game where Washington could go into Detroit and they could win straight up. And we look at the straight up side of it, we say, well, geez, I mean, are these guys good enough to do something, the unthinkable, not only to beat the point spread, but to win the game? Now, only the people in Detroit and those that are drinking the Kool-Aid to say, well, you know, it's I don't know, it seems to be a foregone fact that Detroit is going to win the game. Well, I'm not so sure. We can think about that over and under for these games too. And the over and unders for these games are a whole nother discussion. So if you look at the point totals, you say, well, all right, for all you that don't know, that's the point total between both teams on that over and under, right? So you see those betting odds, and you say, well, I see the point total at, X, whatever that is. All right, well, if you're looking at it at X, then you're saying, well, in this particular case, let's be more specific, it's 55.5. So is this game going to be one of those 28-27 games, which keeps it at, 55 points? That's how you got to look at it. Or better yet, how about 31-28 or something like that, or 35-21, something to the effect, right? I don't really see it going over in this game because everybody's going to be looking for them to score 100 points in this game. Something tells me it might be just one of those 28-27 type of games because when the playoffs happen, typically the defenses tighten down a little bit. So I don't really see that one as going over. But I do see Washington possibly, if the fixed gods are not in place, I see Washington winning the game. And look, this is not a stretch, folks. This is really a good team. However, the one thing that makes me concerned is that right after the NFC Championship game last season between San Francisco and Detroit, and you could see that Detroit, that's what I saw anyway, it was an absolute compromised game. Detroit had this one in the bag, and then suddenly they didn't go up by 3 scores when they had a chance to. They kick a field goal at a low trajectory, which clearly, which I talked about a couple of shows ago, clearly was a predetermined kick, if you will. The kick was blocked, so Detroit couldn't go up by 3 scores. And ultimately, Detroit, I believe they were promised to go to the Super Bowl the next year against Kansas City, and Kansas City, of course, will likely win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row. They'll be the first three-peat in the National Football League in the Super Bowl era. That's how I see it. But in the perfect world, Washington is a better team. But Detroit, will they cover the spread? I don't think they're going to cover the spread. We're going to get into the other 2 games in just a few moments here on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call
714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at Uppercut Chops. thesportscircus.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and event right here in fabulous Las Vegas. And welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and friends over in Honolulu. Thanks for joining us on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. If you're listening in, that's home of the 49ers, Yankees, and Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in, everybody, up and down the West Coast on all of our affiliates, as well as through the Heartland, all the way over to Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves, and in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, plus a whole lot more. Everybody else streaming on social media. Thanks for doing that, as well as on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And plus a big welcome in to everybody on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, and Hotel TV. And I think that should just about cover it, except the Mars Rover. All right. That said, back to the NFL here. I left off with the early games thinking, and these were the Texans and Chiefs and the Commanders and Lions, thinking that the Texans would cover and the Commanders would cover. I think the Commanders actually have a real shot at winning the game if the game isn't fixed, for sure. You think of the money line bets, right, for those straight-up bets, and you're actually getting almost 3-1 on both the Texans and the Commanders. I don't think the Texans are going to win the game, that's for sure. I do think Washington will win the game, and they're about they opened up at plus 295, so you win $295 for a $100 bet. In the case of at the casinos, Caesars Properties have them at plus 360, which is a little bit higher at 360 to win from a $100 bet. And MGM Properties have them at 4-1. And then the Bally's Properties have them at 410. So the best bet there, if you're going to bet the Commanders to win straight up, it would be over at Bally's right here in fabulous Las Vegas. All right, moving into the other games here, because we do have two more games, and these are on Sunday the 19th, and it is the Rams visiting the Eagles. Now, folks, with everything happening in LA right now, it would only stand to reason that if the Rams do lose a game in these playoffs right now, it's going to be as far away from home as possible. Obviously, they did what they did over in Arizona against their opponent, which was the Minnesota Vikings. Wasn't even a game. Looked like that was absolutely thrown. But if you look at the Rams, if they are going to lose a game, it would probably be on the East Coast to Philadelphia. And the Rams opened up at plus 6, and that line is still plus 6 across the board. So when you look at this game, you say, well, why is it only 6? Well, the Rams are playing better ball. They're looking kind of like their Super Bowl team that stole the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, that when Aaron Donald lined up offside with about a minute left in the game when Cincinnati was driving, it was 4th and 2 that would have gave Cincinnati a first down and a chance to go in and possibly win the Super Bowl. But as the powers that be, we had Tampa win their Super Bowl at home with Tom Brady the year before, and of course it was Matthew Stafford and the Rams winning their Super Bowl at home in L.A. in the alleged COVID year, all that other crap with those fake masks and fake agenda and all this other. Oh, by the way, in case you've been keeping up on this stuff, it was the owner of a prominent media organization in Los Angeles, a very prominent doctor, and he had said that he has seen, I know somebody that works with this guy or that has worked with him for quite some time and know him very, very well. I won't quote him, but he had said something very interesting, and it was regarding the shots, and there's a backstory behind this. And when you look at the story, you listen to the story, you say, well, you know what? This may make a little sense. So from X, here is Dr. Patrick, I know I'm going sideways here for a minute here because I can. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shung, owner of the LA Times and a renowned transplant surgeon, is raising alarm about the fallout from mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, linking them to unprecedented deaths and cancers in children. How do you like that? And he says, quote, "For the first time in my career, I've seen an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, 10-year-old with colon cancer. A 13-year-old child died of metastatic pancreatic cancer. He has thrown," close quote, "he has thrown his support behind Robert F. Kennedy Jr., stating Kennedy, quote, knows more about science than most doctors," close quote. Nice round of applause for Bobby. These revelations apparently demand urgent attention. Now, this is according to Stephen Miller, MD. He's a blue check, just like we are, on social media. So here is I'm going to play this for you, even though I'm going sideways there. A lot of this has to do with LA in the first place, but I want you to listen to this for just a quick moment here. And this is actually pretty interesting stuff here. So let's go ahead and play this. And this is from that doctor I had just mentioned. Listen.
So this idea of the effectiveness and safety of the vaccines is real science. We need to talk about it. And guess what? Not only are we going to have two big crises about the recovery of California over the next decade, but we're going to have to address the rising incidence of cancer. For the first time in my career, I've seen an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old with colon cancer. The first time in my career, I've had a 13-year-old child in our clinic die of metastatic pancreatic cancer. We have to face this effectiveness and face reality. The good news is that we can do something about it. The good news now, there are effective therapies because we understand the science in such an immense way.
Well, think about this, folks. Think about this. When we look at the... by the way, that was courtesy of X and Dr. Miller as well. So that could be found, of course, on X. But why is it significant to a football game? Well, first of all, the Rams and the Eagles, well, you've got Los Angeles, who's in complete chaos right now because of all those fires. And the fires have a lot to do with what happens with American Agenda. And then we think of there's a big event coming up on January 20th. And look, there's a lot of ways that you could chop this one up. And I could tell you, as an investigative reporter, that it looks to me like the Rams, if they are going to lose, they are going to lose on the East Coast, and they're not going to lose on the West Coast. It's too close to home. So they won their game in Arizona against the Vikings handily to give the people a boost on the West Coast. A lot of the LA fans went over to Glendale, Arizona to watch that game. Over in Philadelphia, it's a different story, folks. The Rams will probably lose this game. They're not going to continue on. And if they do, the story is going to be that the Rams are still going to be likely on the road unless Washington happens to win over Detroit. So that's the big question. But why is it significant? Because LA needs something to cheer for with all the devastation from all these fires. And you know what, folks, by the way, these fires, remember they had those fires over in Maui about a year or so ago. Well, here's something interesting. First of all, people say, well, you know, they're brush fires. No, they're not. I'll tell you why they're not. Because brush fire season in Southern California, that's in my opinion, by the way, brush fires in Southern California tend to break out in October when things are very dry from the summer heat. Very, very dry. And they've had plenty of rain in Southern California in the rainy season so far. So it's, in my opinion, highly unlikely that there were, I don't know, brush fires all over the place like what's going on. To me, it's too similar. It's just my opinion, folks. To me, it's too similar to what has happened or what happened over in Maui. Now, remember, there's water problem, water shortage issue, apparently, as it's been reported, purportedly, by some of the media saying that, well, the government, the local government or state government, I guess they shut down some of the water or they curtailed it. I don't know. I don't really know all the details on it. And it's very convenient that over in Maui, they had a very, I guess, a similar situation. Not really sure on the details, but look, I could draw a bunch of conclusions like everybody else. And I think, in my opinion, that a direct energy weapon was used to set fires in Maui. There was some video to show that's what happened. And I believe the same thing has happened over in Southern California. And it's my opinion that the outgoing administration has their moment now with a big distraction in Los Angeles, all the celebrities and blah, blah, blah. Oh, everybody's in danger and peril and whatnot. While all the dirty business is done, while the outgoing administration is leaving, and all of their stuff, their agenda, the crap that they're signing off on. Again, I feel this is what's going on. It sure seems to me rather convenient that this is all happening right before there is the change of power in these United States of America. And that, as I see it, is an enormous distraction, being the fires. And so with the Rams winning in LA or winning in Arizona, it made sense. With the Rams losing on the road 2,500 miles away from Los Angeles, that may make a little bit of sense. But could the story be that the Rams are good enough to beat the Eagles? Are they good enough? Yes, they are good enough. Do they have a decent defense? Yes, they do. Can they beat Philadelphia? Yeah. Will they beat them? Probably not. The line opened up at 6. It's still -6. I think the Rams beat the spread. I'll take the 6 points, and I'll roll the dice, and that sure seems to be one of the better bets. And when you think of the point total, they're probably going to score over 44 points because that's the consensus on the line, even though it opened up at 45.5. And the money line, in case you're wondering, the Eagles are -275 basically across the board. So I'm likely to take the Eagles on the money line, the Rams with the points, and the over. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, or recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc., and so forth. Lots of great guests that have been on the show. Lots more coming up here, too. And also, make sure you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners over there. Some of them have been with us since the very beginning, just like the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Folks, check out the partners page as well as the store page. Pick up your hats and your hoodies and coats and whatnot from the Sports Circus with our logos on them. And that's on the store page at thesportscircus.com. Nice round of applause for the Sports Circus. A shameless plug. All right, welcome back to everybody. You know you are. TV, radio, streaming. Left off with the NFL playoffs divisional round. Just talked about the Texans and Chiefs. We have the Texans covering against the Chiefs. We'll take all those points. And the same thing with Washington. I think Washington actually could win that game straight up if the games aren't really fixed here. And the Rams will probably lose, but they'll cover. They'll win with the 6 points here. And we have the final game with the Ravens and the Bills. Now, that ought to be one hell of a game. And I'm looking for a little bit more defense, even though both of these quarterbacks can really air it out. The line opened up at Buffalo -1.5, and the line is up to +1 for Buffalo. So that's a 2.5-point swing. Two of the online betting venues have it at +1.5. So that is technically a 3-point swing here. But as we look at it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for the Baltimore Ravens to win at Buffalo. And you can cut it up however you want to. Ultimately, this is a home game for Buffalo. Buffalo's playing in their element. Buffalo is a very good defensive team. And let's face it, Baltimore's a good defensive team too. But Buffalo is the better team of these two. And I'm inclined to say, I would rather take the 1 point. And let's face it, I believe Buffalo is going to win the game at home. But we look at the point total, that's probably the more important one. The over and under, it opened up at 52.5, and it's only down to 51.5. Thinking that they're probably thinking, the odds makers are saying, let's say all this is honest, they're looking at maybe a 27-24 victory, which makes a little bit of sense because that puts it at 51 points, and it still covers the spread, so to say, if you are betting on the Baltimore Ravens, laying the 1 or 1.5 points, depending on where you get it. So as I look at it, this game would be a little bit more predictable from the betting side. I'm still thinking Buffalo's going to win the game. Now we think of the money line straight up. If that's the case, the line opened up at Buffalo -115, so you put up 115 to win 100. Over at the MGM properties, it's even money. Put up 100, win 100. At Caesars, it's +105. Put up 100 to win 105. And at Bally's, it's -106. And you know what's interesting about the betting lines here is that you say, well, all right, the MGM is closest to the airport in Las Vegas, McCarran Airport. Somebody calls it something else. But what I find interesting is that a lot of people will fly in, bet huge amounts of money, or they'll just drive in, and the closest one to, I guess, the freeway exit and everything else, the easiest access, you could say is Caesar's Palace because it's right there at Flamingo, but it's easier to get in and out of the MGM if that's the case, because you can go in the back entrance right from the east end of the property. And so it may seem like a little stretch, but I tell you, I live here. It's easier for people to get in and out of there. And so you'll see a little bit more action coming into that property because of its location. And that's why they have that line likely at even money, because of all the betting that they've seen. Because look at it this way. If you go a little further down the strip, you have plus 105 at Caesars and you have minus 106 at Bally's, who are across the street from one another. And lots and lots and lots of tourism centers right there. That's the busiest intersection in the world, Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo, in case you didn't know that. However, the MGM, given where it's situated, again, it's easier access, and they're going to see better action as I see it. And it's going to be more real action, not just the small money from the tourist. And so the bigger numbers are going to go over there. That's why I think it is an even money bet over at the MGM. So if I'm inclined to bet it, which I'm inclined to take Buffalo, I'm going to go over to Caesars Palace and I'm going to put up 100 to win 105 over there. That makes a little bit more sense. I do believe that the Bills are going to move on in this game, and I believe that the Eagles will move on. I believe the Lions eventually will move on, because that's, as I saw it, was predetermined last year, and the Chiefs. So your AFC Championship game will look like the Chiefs and the Bills, which are, well, probably the two best teams in the American Conference, and of course, Detroit and Philadelphia. And so Detroit will likely win that game at home against Philadelphia. And so what are we going to see? We have a direct path for the Chiefs to play the Detroit Lions, as I'd said, before the Super Bowl last year. Now, this makes all the sense in the world. Detroit in that game will likely have a very good game and unfortunately come up just a little bit short. In dramatic fashion, it'll be the Kansas City Chiefs winning their third Super Bowl in a row. And I remember I saw a post out there from our friend Lee Steinberg. And if you've seen the movie Jerry Maguire was actually based on the life of Lee Steinberg, as he is the founder, technically, of a sports agent, of the sports agent world. He's the very first sports agent. And so Lee was on the show back in 2000, and I think it was January 2019. Great guy. We had a funny episode there because as we're going from the first break to the second break, and Lee was coming in at the second break, I had somebody with me, and I was using a remote studio at that time. And sure enough, the power went out right when I was coming back from break. And luckily, the other guy that was with me, he went and carried the show on while we rebooted the entire building. And it was probably about 3 minutes, but I mean, it came on in record time, able to get back in the show. But you'd never know that the power went out. And so when he came on, of course, we got a chance to talk about all kinds of neat stuff. But we think about the sports betting world and all that fun stuff. Lee put something out on his social media, and he wanted to know the winners of all the wild card weekend games. And now he has the same thing, who is going to win the divisional games. Look, and I fast forwarded on this wild card post and said, look, it's going to be Detroit and Kansas City, and Detroit will lose to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And of course, Patrick Mahomes is one of his clients, and so he was happy to hear that. But ultimately, folks, all this stuff is for entertainment purposes only. And as soon as you figure that part of it out, as soon as you actually digest it, then you'll understand how these things work in the first place. And you know, we got this coaching carousel going around in the National Football League, and people are saying, well, geez, maybe the Dallas Cowboys going to hire this one, that one. They fired Mike, or they didn't fire, but they let go of Mike McCarthy, and the Bears got rid of Eberflus. Some people are saying, well, maybe McCarthy will go and join the Chicago Bears. And as a fan of the Bears growing up in Chicago, I don't want to see McCarthy in Chicago. But here's an interesting thing. Let's just say hypothetically, McCarthy ends up, God forbid, in Chicago as the coach. You know who's going to follow him, don't you? I'll tell you who's going to follow him. Just as a backup in case he's needed. Yes, the unthinkable. In my opinion, it would be Aaron Rodgers. No, we don't want him. With all this nonsensical celebration crap and all this other thing, in Soldier Field, that's the last thing the Bears want. It really is. I really believe the guy for the Bears is going to be Pete Carroll, although Ron Rivera, being a former Bear, he's a defensive coach. But listen, even Caleb Williams said very clearly, very, very clearly, Caleb Williams sounded off a little bit on this coaching situation for the Bears. And you say, well, hey, geez, Caleb, I mean, who would you want to see in the grand scheme of things? And Caleb says, look, honestly, selfishly, quote, selfishly, I want an offensive-minded guy. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. If you look at what he has gone through, he was the guy that was sacked the most. And let's face it, a big fat mess. And the Bears, of course, are casting this wide net, as they say on pick your favorite media outlet, whatever. They're casting this wide net for who's going to be the coach. And Chicago's quarterback went, of course, on a particular, some podcast, and it was the St. Brown one. So they have Amon-Ra and his brother that play for the Bears. He went on that, and these are guys that play in Detroit. Nonetheless, the brother plays for the Bears. And of course, and he even said selfishly, I want an offensive-minded guy so I can build with him and be with that coach for the next 19, 17, 15 years. And so I could also learn and grow from him and what he's seen and what he's gone through with maybe other quarterbacks, close quote. If that's the case, Pete Carroll could be the guy. Pete Carroll absolutely has built winners. He knows that rodeo very, very well. And the question is, who would be another quarterback that could join him? Because the Bears need a solid number 2 in case, well, the Caleb Williams gets hurt. We don't really want that now, do we? So maybe we'll pick up on that on the other side. Maybe we won't. Don't go anywhere. Not sure where it's going to go. Back here in a few minutes.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Remaster Cell, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, again, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, prior guests, or recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc. And also, head on over to the partners page and check out our friends over at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy, and that's Al's #1 Italian beef. If you can't get over there for some great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. Since 1938, they've been filling bellies with great food, and they're going to continue for another 100 years. All right. All right, welcome back to everybody. You know who you are. Everybody on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Independents as well. Over 200 radio stations have access to this program today. That's right. Along with all of our TV affiliates, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Spectrum, Time Warner, WOW Cable Television in select markets, as well as Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. So, leaving off in the last segment talking about Caleb Williams wanting an offensive-minded coach, well, guess what? He's not the only one. Look, the Bears have interviewed 15 guys. Even the Jets, they have a problem with Aaron Rodgers because, well, guess what? At this point, Aaron is available. And the reality is, he's in no rush to make a decision on his NFL future. And he says, I'm going to take my time. And so that said, look, even the Jets are in this coaching situation. Of course, they're casting their own wide net as the GM, though, and head coach search. So speaking to guys like John Eric Sullivan and Ryan Grigson and Arthur Smith, Steve Spagnuolo, Rex Ryan, Aaron Glenn, etc., and so forth, whatever. Look, Rodgers, he's 41. He did play in all 17 games this past season and did hit the milestone of 500 touchdowns, 60,000 passing yards, a year removed from suffering that season-ending Achilles injury in the season opener a year ago. And, of course, the Jets went 5-12, just like the Bears, and fired both head coach and general manager. So Aaron says, quote, as far as my own decision, I told them I'm going to take some time. They haven't even made a decision on the general manager or coach yet. Once that happens, then that'll take us to the next step, which is a conversation, I'm assuming, with whoever that individual is, close quote. So in case you don't know, according to Spot Track, Aaron Rodgers has a $49 million price tag here. It's a dead cap hit against the $23.5 million hit with the Jets for next season. So if either side decides to move on, the Jets can designate him a post-June 1st release or retirement, taking on hits of $14 million in 2025 and $35 million in 2026. Come on, folks. That's ridiculous. I mean, this guy got paid all that money for what? Look, he didn't play all last year. And if you don't play, well, you shouldn't get paid. Sorry. That's just how it goes. He got injured? Yeah. But he should not get full salary. Just like when people lose their jobs in the regular working world, what do they get? Maybe they get fired from their job. Maybe they were making $200,000 a year, whatever the hell. I don't know. The average person makes about $50,000 a year in America. Now, if that's the case, well, when they get fired or they lose their job or they can't perform or whatever, they end up getting unemployment, which is, I don't know, maybe $500 a week or something to that effect. Well, how come Aaron couldn't just file for unemployment if that's the case? Because he couldn't perform. Oh, he got hurt on the job. Well, he didn't have to go through a workman's comp case like every other working American does. Now, did he? No, he still got paid tens of millions of dollars for what? To sit at home. I don't know. That's just not right. But even former teammate of his, Brett Favre, had chimed in on this and had said, quote, if you want to play, if there's anything in your gut that tells you, man, I think I could go out one more year, then I would say do it. Because you can't go back. Once you leave, that's it. You move on. If there's any little inkling of him and he wants to play and prove that he could still do it at a high level, I would say do it, close quote. And that's Brett Favre. And Brett Favre had a very interesting toughness about him. And a guy like him, he's just one of those guys that can actually get her done no matter what. And he really dished it out, and he also took it too. And there were certain teams that he did not like to play physically against, and that was the Chicago Bears, for example, because, man, did they give him some really, and I mean big hits. But he bounced right up. He's like, all right, I'll shake out the cobwebs, and I'll do it. So Brett Favre was always one of those guys, even though he played for the enemy. Very honorable guy. Hey, here's another interesting tidbit here from the NFL. How about this? A month after taking the job, Bill Belichick hasn't signed his North Carolina contract yet. That's right. That's great news because, I mean, me personally, I'm a Duke guy. Sorry, I don't care what happens over in Chapel Hill outside of the idea that the great Michael Jordan went to school there and, of course, played for my Chicago Bulls. But Bill Belichick is operating without a signed contract at North Carolina. That's according to CBS Sports. He hasn't officially signed his deal with the school, and UNC introduced him as this next head coach about a month ago. And the 6-time Super Bowl winner has been assembling a staff and gone out on the road to recruit. Yet he's not under contract. And there are some legal things to that, but nonetheless, sources tell CBS Sports and UNC confirmed that there is no fully executed and signed contract between Bill Belichick and UNC. And industry sources say that could lead to a legal gray area about how much, if any, of a buyout there would be if Belichick left for the pros. How do you like that? The ploy continues. Maybe Bill Belichick coaches for Jerry Jones, maybe for the Chicago Bears. You never know. But Belichick, who has signed an offer sheet with the school, wouldn't be the first power conference coach to operate without a signed contract in recent months. Michigan coach Sherrone Moore didn't immediately sign his deal to succeed Jim Harbaugh as the Wolverines head coach and even coach the first 2 games of the season before signing the contract. How do you like that? So Belichick has a $10 million buyout at North Carolina, and that number drops to $1 million this summer. As the report notes, the lack of a signed deal could lead an NFL team to believe that Belichick would have little to no buyout at North Carolina at the moment if the deal isn't signed. But of course, there's no indication that Bill is interested in the NFL at this point, and he hasn't officially been interviewed by anyone this hiring cycle yet. And the longer he goes without an interview, the less likely it is to become that he'll be a coach in the NFL. Plus, look at the tweet from newly hired UNC general manager Mike Lombardi. He says, quote, Bill is recruiting in D.C. today and Baltimore tomorrow. His focus is on North Carolina football, hiring staff members and developing the team. The NFL isn't an option, so please stop making it one. Thank you. Close quote. Listen, if that guy believes that Bill is 100% committed to Carolina, then don't you believe that he would sign that agreement immediately? One would think so. And of course, in his introductory news conference, Bill said he didn't come to North Carolina to leave. And as he continues to build his staff, it's pretty clear that the coach is sticking to these words. North Carolina's reportedly added longtime NFL special teams coach Mike Pfeiffer and Western Kentucky offensive coordinator Will Friend to his staff this week. And UNC also reportedly added Washington's Armon Hawkins as his defensive backs coach. And Hawkins worked with Belichick's son Steve at the University of Washington a season ago. And Steve Belichick is set to be NC's defensive coordinator. Listen, folks, all this stuff can change very, very quickly. Life can change quickly. And of course, in a sad note, the great Bob Ueker, shifting into baseball, the great Bob Ueker longtime voice of the Milwaukee Brewers and a star of the movie Major League, has died at 90 years of age. Now, Bob Ueker didn't have to stretch much to play a quick-witted broadcaster, Harry Doyle, in the movie Major League. Milwaukee Brewers fans happily listened to that act for more than 50 years. And Ueker's, whose humor made him a celebrity far outside the baseball world, look, this guy was a very popular guy. The Ueker family said in a statement that he had been battling small cell lung cancer since 2023, and Ueker was the play-by-play voice, as we know, of the Brewers, going all the way back to 1971, one of the longest runs by a broadcaster with one team in Major League Baseball history. And of course, the Brewers said in a statement, quote, "Ueker was the light of the Brewers, the soundtrack of our summers, the laughter in our hearts, and his passing is a profound loss. He was the heart and soul of Wisconsin and a dear friend. Bob loved people. His presence warmed every room, and he had a way of welcoming all of us into his world as if we were lifelong friends," close quote. Now, fans outside of Wisconsin also knew Bob Ueker, who rose to a level of fame rarely experienced by baseball radio broadcasters. He was on their TVs, appearing with Johnny Carson regularly on The Tonight Show, having started a role in the 1980 sitcom Mr. Belvedere, or on the Miller Lite commercials, which I remember very clearly, that are still memorable decades after they aired. And many fans still recite Ueker's best line from his character in Major League. And of course, just a bit outside, but his core, Ueker wasn't a national star. He was in Milwaukee. He was what Milwaukee is. That is his hometown. Year after year, he came back to call games on WTMJ radio for what was usually a losing Brewers season. When the Brewers were so bad, he could carry an entire season with his entertaining stories between play-by-play in the same light as what Harry Carey did. The greatest storyteller of all time was Vin Scully, the voice of the Dodgers for about 60 years. But Bob Ueker brought a comedic side to it in the same way that Harry Carey did. And Harry didn't really know much about baseball. He was just a funny guy to be around and a great beer drinker. But Bob Ueker, as a former player, this is a whole different animal. So he knew on the field, in the clubhouse, he knew a lot that was going on out there, but he made light of it. And look, when the Brewers were bad, he could carry the entire season. That's just what he did. But his broadcasting earned him the prestigious Ford Frick Award in 2003, and he was presented with the honors at Hall of Fame weekend in Cooperstown. His speech at the Hall of Fame also was legendary. In case you missed it, folks, you may want to check that out. Ueker was given the name Mr. Baseball as a tongue-in-cheek nod to his mediocre playing career, but after a lifetime entertaining baseball fans, the nickname was actually quite fitting. Bob Ueker, dead at the age of 90. That's going to do it for the show today, folks. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you next time in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.